So I'll talk as I go through this, but the answers are obviously there. It's important that you have this in your notes, right? Don't throw away easy free points. Remember that on number one, horizontal is 0. Okay. The second one, I just went back to back on these just to make sure you get the basics down. Number two, you can write undefined. I just have been leaning towards no slope lately. So either no slope or undefined slope. Either one's good. Any questions on one or two? Okay, on three, it's positive, so we don't need to worry about a negative. And the only 2 points I could find were the two that I have highlighted up there. Um, so it's up 3 and right 7, so that's why the slope is 3/7. And then number four, it's clearly downhill. So I think I wrote m equals negative before I even started the problem, just because, as humans, we sometimes forget silly things like, oh, downhill line, I better put a negative slope. So I wrote the negative down and then I counted out the points. So any questions on one, two, three, or four? You should be perfect at that by now, quite frankly. If you're not, there's always, another 23 and a half hours to go, but we should be there. Okay, on numbers 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, those are your four answers. Please notice that I followed my own directions and I showed work, okay? I know that that's harder for some of us than others because some of us are kind of stubborn, but I do not want to just see an answer on these problems. I want to see an actual how you got the top number and how you got the bottom number. And then, of course, you reduce your slopes completely. So, and this goes back again to the idea of, do I have in my notes the difference between no slope and zero slope, right? I want to continue to hit that point until I've exhausted all possible attempts at getting everyone to understand which is which. So, any questions on 5 through 8? Right then, on to the next page. I made the starting point blue just 'cause I want to make sure that everyone understands the process on these. Um, you have to follow directions, okay? Understand this? So on number 9, you're graphing by using the slope and the y-intercept. That's what we're asked to do. And so we start at down 2, straight down 2, and then the slope is positive, so it goes up and right. And it also goes down and left. And again, apologies. I know that graph is really hard to figure out where, especially if your eyesight is not perfect. It's hard to see where to go, but we can make do. So, and then 10, this is usually a spot where I have to take off points. I'm only telling you that just because you can learn from the mistakes of students in the past. I'm sorry, but you are not allowed to get y equals mx plus b on this, okay? You have to graph it using the point slope equation. So that's why you'll see that on this problem, I wrote down the point that I got out of the equation, and I wrote down the slope that I got out of the equation. And then again, when I made my graph, I made the starting point blue. So you can see that we start at the point 4, -1. Move on up if you need to, bud. There's like 5 open seats that are 12 feet closer to the board than you are currently. So, do you have any questions on number 10? I'm just telling you again from my experience that people sometimes graph a really good line there, but they do it in a way that is not what I'm testing you on. I'm testing you on your ability to read that type of equation, pull a point out of it, pull a slope out of it, and then graph it that way. Okay, y equals mx plus b was tested on the last problems, so we're not worried about that. Okay, last chance. Any questions there? This will be the video that I'm making right now will be posted on Canvas, and then of course the answer key will be posted as well. So if I go too fast and you're one of those people that doesn't like to speak up in front of other people, then you can do it in the privacy of your own home or on the bus or whatever you want to do. Numbers 11 and 12, I'm testing only one concept, and that is, do you know the difference between a vertical and a horizontal line? And again, this is one of those things that you could add to your notes, and I'm not kidding, literally 12 seconds. You could say when there's an X, it's vertical, when there's a Y, it's horizontal. Like that's it. Draw an example if you want to, and then it takes 16 seconds instead of 12. But remember, if it's X equals, you just go to there on the X axis, make a mark, go up and down. If it's Y equals, you go on the Y axis to there, up or down, make a mark, and then go across. Any questions on 11 and 12? 13 is another one that I often find I have to take points off for just because sometimes we don't understand what's being asked of us. So for the 84th time, these are the types there's two of each on the test, right? You know that from looking at the first practice test. I condensed it to make it shorter today. But when you get to these two problems on the test, on the practice test, the first one, they were problems 19 and 20. Okay, so 13 is like 19 and 20. Your job is to do the thing where we get rid of the y, solve for x, and then get rid of the x and solve for y, and then connect the dots. So I'm showing my work. I tried to be as deliberate as I could to put onto this exactly what I expect at a bare minimum to see on your papers. Okay. So look, I found the x-intercept just like I was asked to. I found the y-intercept just like I was asked to. And those are the 2 points that I will use to make the graph. No mention in this problem of the S word, S-L-O-P-E. It doesn't even apply to this problem. I'm not interested. Okay. Question number 14 is what some of us really like to do, and I'm proud of that because it's a great skill to possess for math. But this is the one where I want you to get y by itself. So when it says to convert it to slope intercept, that means get y by itself. And so you can see me showing my work over there. I started by moving the x to the other side, and then I divided everything by -3, and I wound up with the red equation. And then that's the equation that I'll use to make my graph. And again, the blue point is where I started, and then the subsequent points are a result of the up 1, right 3 slope. Any questions on that? Cal, you okay, bud?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that concludes that page. On to page 3. These are just, I think I put 2 of these on here for formatting reasons, maybe. I don't actually know. Wonder if no, whatever. I'm just expecting you to be able to look at the line and identify the slope and identify the y-intercept. And if you can tell me those 2 things, then you just plug them right in. So the blue dot that's straight down to, can you shut the door for me, Wyatt? I don't know what's happening, but it's certainly not acceptable. Thanks. So the -2 that it starts at, the down 2 is at the end, and then the slope you can see is -1/3. Negative, of course, because it goes downhill, right? And then the other one, again, it starts at down 4, hence the -4 at the end, and the slope is obviously uphill. And I just have a couple lattice points highlighted. So, any questions on 15 or 16? Okay, that takes us to pretty much the home stretch. 17 is the one I will tell you again that you're just not allowed to miss. You can miss it today, right? Free of charge. But it really, you would agree, anyone, whether you agree with me generally, like me, like to be contrarian or whatever, you cannot really disagree that this is a really silly problem and that missing it is pretty inexcusable, regardless of who you are. So if I give you everything you need, the slope and the y-intercept, you literally just plug them in and you're done. That's a 2.5-second problem. Okay, no math on problem number 17. 18 is where it gets interesting. This is where we have to now do math. We have to understand that when someone gives me a point and a slope, I start by putting it into point slope. That's our foot in the door. I didn't write it in red because to me, that thing that you have that you see right here, I'll put a little arrow pointing to it. That's not the answer, right? That's just me getting my foot in the door. And then that's where I start to show my work and work towards the red equation. So that black equation is just the point slope, and then we distribute, and then we add 5 to both sides, and that's where the red final answer comes from. Okay, red is the goal. We just can't get straight to red. You know, there have been some of you in the past, not going to name names, but you know who you are, who've erroneously thought that this was the y-intercept. And of course, that's if it were that easy, I would have just said that in the first place, right? That's not how this works. That's not the y-intercept. It's just the y coordinate of some random point. I'm not interested in that. We use it to help us find the y-intercept, but it's certainly not going to be a part of our final answer down here, okay? So question number 19 is basically exactly the same as question 18, except I don't know the slope going into it. And as always, what do we do when we don't know a slope?
Find it.
You find it. That is the answer 100.0% of the time. Okay, we're not going anywhere without a slope. So I showed my work again, and I showed how I did y minus y and x minus x, bless you. And I got a final slope up there you can see of -2. Once I got the slope of -2, then my job at that point was to pick one of the 2 points. And you can see clearly that I picked the first point. I realize also that some of you might have picked the 4 and 8 point, and that's fine too. What that doesn't matter at that point because that's not our final destination. The red is our final destination. And regardless of which point you picked, if your slope is -2 and you didn't make any mistakes, you got the same red answer as I did. So any questions on that? Okay, last page. Number 20 is something I've been talking about throughout the day with people. And I really hope I can succeed in my mission to convince you all that 19 or 20 and 21 are just nothing special. I have to teach them to you, but oh, it's not a big deal. What does it mean to be parallel?
Equals to each other.
Yeah, that's what I need to hear, Nash. Is yes, I understand that parallel lines look like train tracks. I understand they don't cross. We've talked about this before. I am your algebra teacher, and when I ask what does it mean for lines to be parallel, I expect you to say the words, they have the same slope. That's what I'm interested in because I'm your algebra teacher. So all I do is I go to the equation over here and I take the slope and I simply say, I see your slope. It's just right there. It's not even hiding from me, for God's sake. It's just saying, I'm right here. Hello. I'm a slope. I'm a half. So I just reach in and I take that slope and the problem is over. Like there are no more fancy words. I've got a point, 8, -2. I've got a slope, 1/2. And then you can see I just create the equation like I did on every problem before this. If you don't understand that, you still do have like 23 hours and 15 minutes before the test tomorrow. So you could find some time to come in and we can go over the parallel. And when it clicks with you, you're going to say something like, oh, that's all I have. And the answer is yes. So I'm so sorry if you think that that's a difficult problem. I am really sorry, not in a sarcastic kind of way. Like I hate that because we're making it harder than it needs to be. Just means go grab the slope and then do your thing. 21, I will admit, is a little bit more complex than 20 in that, yes, I see the slope. I see the slope just sitting there waving its arms at me. It says, I'm right here. I'm 6/5. I'm your guy. Except I don't take that slope and use it. You guys remember, what do we do to a slope when we want it? You flip it and switch the sign. So you'll notice off to the left over here, that's why I took the time to write that the slope I'm going to use is -5/6. I'm stealing a slope, but I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to perpendicularize it. And then the problem is, 500th verse, same as the first. I've got a point, I've got a slope, I write an equation, over again. Okay. That leads us to the ending of these, and that's 22 and 23. And these, again, I feel like this is super low-hanging fruit, like grab it. You don't even have to say thank you, you just take it. And number 22, what kind of line is this, what I'm circling? What kind of line am I circling?
A singular.
What kind of line is that? Thank you. That's a vertical line. And if I ask you to give me back one that's parallel, then you're going to give me back another vertical, right? So the idea is whatever I give you, just give me one back. Because if you want to be parallel, give me another one. You got a line that goes straight vertical, give me another one that goes straight vertical. And we know that all straight vertical lines are x equals a number. And that's why I just wrote x equals, and then I just picked the x to go with it, -2, the one from the point. And then the logic is the same on question 23. What kind of line am I circling? What kind of line am I circling? That's a vertical, right? But I'm asking you this time not to give me one of those back. If I give you a vertical and ask you to give me back one that's perpendicular to it, what do you give me back? A horizontal. And that's the logic of these. These are not math problems. I've said it 14 times. They're not math, they're logic problems. So you just simply give me back a y equals, because we've done this so many times, you know that horizontal lines are y equals a number, right? So you just write y equals, and then you go and you look at the point and you go, oh, I'll take your y, -13, done. That leads us to the end, questions 24 and 25. You can see I didn't get very creative when I was rewriting this practice test for you today. You should have the idea by now that how much the plant grows is what's attached to x, right? That's what we call a rate of change. Slope, rate of change, those terms are pretty much interchangeable. Okay, so the half, you could write it as 1/2. Half is just exactly the same as 0.5. That goes with the x, and the 3 is the y-intercept. That's where the graph, quote unquote, starts, if you will. At time 0, like this problem starts the moment I buy the plant. So my y-intercept is 3. And then those explanations are fine. You don't have to use exactly the same words as I did, but the ideas are that the slope is how much it changes, and the y-intercept is where it, quote unquote, starts. Right? Obviously, the plant started at 0, but when we buy it is when the problem starts, and that's why it starts at 3. Do you guys have any questions on that? Okay, I hope that was time well spent for you. I hope you were able to learn something today. If not, then you would have gotten 100% on the test anyway. So, change of plans, like I said, we'll take the test tomorrow, and then we'll start Unit 4 on Thursday. If you have any questions, make sure you come see me, okay? Tomorrow it will be too late. Tomorrow during the class.